Hey everyone. I forgot to give the date on the other two videos, but of course this is TB Shores. This is May the 7th, I believe, 2015. Um, we're going to stick on these scriptures in Revelations 18 for just a bit. Um, the Lord wants me to point out a few things. The thing here is what God is trying to show us about what the United States has become. It is not just about sin running rampant. It is how Satan, as a country, we have let Satan take over. Okay? You know, other people have shown us, and I pointed out in a past video about how this country was dedicated to God. People have different theories on things pertaining to that. But after doing a little homework on George Washington and the dedication, I feel that in the beginning, this country truly was dedicated to God. I cannot take us down the whole path that got us to where we are now, but God is showing me where we are now. And I'm not supposed to lay every detail out. God just wants me connecting the dots and making certain points so that the understanding is clear of what this country has become. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw out there what it is that we're going to be looking at here. And it is how the United States has become the seat, SEAT, seat of Satan. And I know that that's going to be hard for some people to grasp, but I'm going to try to connect some dots so that that picture is clearer for you. And it's even going to take us into some areas that to me was a little mind-boggling. If you've watched my videos for very long, you understand how God has me to dig into things and get the spiritual understanding out of things that is hidden. God is showing us things that have not been out in the open. Now, some things I'm going to touch on, we're going to have heard before. Some things I'm going to touch on, you may scratch your head and say, what's she talking about? But I know this. I know that God has drawn me to try to lay out for you and connect some dots to give understanding as to what this nation has become and how it has aided in corrupting the world. The first thing I want to look at right here is we see, I've already talked about New York where we see what's going on with the World Trade Center and the Oculus, and how through the dollar, and we see the connection with the World Trade Center and the eye on the dollar and the eye there, the Oculus and we're going to get into that some more. I mean, this stuff goes deep. It goes so deep I can't even begin to describe it all to you. If we had an unlimited amount of time, we could probably dig into it for at least a couple of months. But anyway, right here, what I want to point out is about New York and how it is a seat of Satan and how he has the World Trade Center set up there, which has served him well in drawing in all nations, as we saw in Revelations 18, drawing in the nations after the lust of the dollar. Okay? Draw the nations to lust after the dollar. Okay, one other thing I want to point out before we go any further, this is all about the land of idols, which is America. Now, don't get me wrong, there are idols all over this world. And the reason God started with Nepal was because of how prominent it was in representing the land of idols and the high places. because of the mountainous region that it is. It happened to be the most mountainous, highest mountainous region in the world. It happened to be the main place in this world and is well known for its god and goddess worship and its making of graven images. America, God showed us how America with the dollar is the high place of the world as far as spiritually speaking, has exalted the idol, the dollar, above God, beyond any other idol on this earth. It is the high place. It is the place of Bama, which means high place. And we've discussed this. I don't think it's hard to figure out what God's telling us with that right there. And then it's all about exalting, how this country has exalted so much above God, and that it has people distracted. They're caught up in all these things and not God. But what we're going to look at right now is New York and California. Okay, the Satan's prominent seat is at the World Trade Center, and I'll show you that later, how I get to that. But we also see that Satan has a seat in California. It's known as Hollywood. It's not only about lust for the dollar, but it also draws in the lust of imagery. And by that I mean, oh my goodness, that covers a vast amount of things. But it's the imagery that comes out of Hollywood. And idols are about image. We learned in 2nd Chronicles that it was the graven images. It's about imagery. Idol is about imagery. And Hollywood is key to that. Hollywood gives us the imagery that gives us, how would you say, I guess the best way to say it is just say it, isn't it? It's about money and sex. With California, we see the money thing going on there, but it's mostly about the imagery that comes out of there and how it draws to the other great idol that Satan has created, and that is sex. The two main idols that Satan has put in the way of man to keep his eyes off of God and exalt these things above God is money and sex. And New York at the World Trade Center and California at Hollywood are the main promoters of these. Okay, that's not to say it don't exist other places, but they are the main promoters of these. These are where they are seated, the hubs, so to speak, the hubs by which it all stems out from, as far as it being raised above God. Okay. Here I've made a note that says Satan's two biggest achievements to draw people away from God, which are the lust for money and sex. And of course, there are many more of which I do not have time to get into. But what God wanted me to point out with these seats that Satan has set up at the World Trade Center and at Hollywood, is this right here. New York is on the East Coast. California is on the West Coast. What we're going to start getting into here is understanding how Satan mimics God. Okay? Everything Satan does is to try to copy God or be equal to God in an attempt to consider himself equal to God or exalt himself above God. And we're going to see symbolism of that as I go along here. But the thing I want to point out at this moment is this about the East and the West Coast. If we look in Psalm 103, verse 12, it says this: As far as the east is from the west, so far hath he removed our transgressions for us. Do you see this? As far as the east is from the west. As far as the east is from the west. From coast to coast. You see this? All across the country. East is to the west. This is Satan mimicking the scriptures, mocking God and mimicking God however that he can. Okay, when we look at the word transgression, let me come over here. I think it's this. Okay, I found that it means iniquity, which means sin. But the biggest thing I want to point out about that is when we look at the word transgression, this is what it means. Evil contrary to the truths of faith. Okay? Here we see in Psalm 103:12 what the scripture says basically is telling us that God removed our transgressions, our sin, our iniquity, as far away as east is to the west, meaning there is no distance that can even begin to describe how far removed he has taken it from us, okay? But then Satan wants to mimic and mock him by showing that he has on the east and on the west. He has set up places of sin and of transgression that goes against, it says, evil contrary to the truths. So Satan has set up these places, mocking God and mimicking God, that go against God's truths. Okay? It's important that we understand how that Satan has manipulated and twisted everything, trying to be an image of God, trying to make himself equal to God, at the same time mocking God. Okay? I'm going to cut this video off here and we'll pick up on some more things of this type when I come back. I love you. Bye-bye.